Welcome again, everyone. What a great pleasure to be with you in this video segment dealing with Louis Bouyer's book, Introduction to Spirituality, Chapter 6, and Shoeless by an author you know and hopefully love, Chapter 2 on the human soul. So these two readings really line up quite well together, I think. And I just want to go through a few highlights from the Bouyer text and combine some from the Shoeless chapter at the same time. So beginning with Bouyer, page 183, I like how he puts it. I think it's very accurate that the human condition can be evaluated according to, on one hand, a metaphysical optimism, and on the other hand, a historical pessimism. And he unpacks a bit what he means by that. But from a Catholic perspective, the imago Dei is never too far gone in any human being on this side of eternity. The imago Dei, and I should say on the other side of eternity as well, that there's something imprinted on the human person, the immortal soul, the rational soul, the human nature, individual substance of a rational nature, and the imago Dei that is invincible. It cannot be destroyed, cannot be tarnished so much that is obliterated. God's love for each individual personal soul is irrevocable, is forever. So the metaphysical optimism about the person is, as we read with St. Paul in his first letter to St. Timothy, God wills that all people be saved and come to the knowledge of truth. This is what God wants. But then again with St. Augustine, God created us without us, but does not will to save us without us. So we do have a yes or no to make to God, ultimately, and that yes or no is on display, is manifest in our thoughts, words, and deeds and omissions in our concrete living. So this chapter is really helpful about Christian spirituality and a kind of Christian humanism, as Bouyer gives us a kind of theological anthropology. There's a historical pessimism about the human condition because of the fall, because of original sin. In theology, we call it a post-lapsarian humanity. That is after the lapse, after the fall we read about in Genesis chapter 3. And so then on page 185, Bouyer says, we're not wholly ourselves unless we have the Spirit of God within us. It's very true. Sometimes in more popular parlance, it's talked about as a God-shaped hole that only God can fill. And so there's a kind of created vacancy within us that God is meant to be there, to occupy, to dwell, to live, and move. So this is a beautiful relationship between body, soul, and divine spiritual being that revives us, restores us, renovates us to be fully in the imago Dei, in union with God. Page 188, metaphysically speaking, we can ask the question with Bouyer, what does it mean to be saved? And here's where the Carmelites give us a lot of helpful insights about the nature of the human soul in relation to God. In the book Shoeless, page 17, this top section about the soul as God's heaven. The metaphysical essence of salvation is the indwelling of God in the soul that will resurrect us in the end, body and soul. And the Catechism has nice things to talk about this too, thinking about the, in a sense, recreation of the human nature through the resurrection of the dead. So for Carmelites, this quote from St. Elizabeth of the Trinity: "Give peace to my soul, make it your heaven, your beloved dwelling, and your resting place." And she goes on. So all these Carmelite saints constantly talk about the human soul is God's heaven on earth. This is a tremendous truth about us, about you, about me. God desires to live, to take up residence, so to speak, in our souls. Saint Teresa of Avila calls the soul the interior castle, and all these dwelling places, in Spanish, las moradas, in the soul. And God wants to take up residence in the interiormost region. This is where the king lives, in the castle of the soul, in the innermost hidden secret chamber. And when we are receptive and docile to this influx of divine life within us, this is what happens through the sacramental life of the church, above all, and a sustained life of prayer and the movement of divine life within us. So this is so exciting just to talk about it right now. It's a tremendous mystery of who we are, and that every day we can go about life in this fashion and pray to God, "Live in me, O Lord, dwell in me, most holy Trinity. Make my soul your dwelling place, your permanent address." And so it's beautiful that we receive the Eucharist to renew this indwelling of God within us, a circulation of divine life in us and through us. So metaphysically, to be saved, we're going to talk about divine, infinite spiritual being uniting itself with finite personal spiritual being, and the union of persons results in salvation. It's a very participatory understanding of salvation, not the concept of what's more in Protestant Christianity of forensic justification from afar in spite of ourselves, and as if our nature is totally depraved. No, from a Catholic teaching standpoint, our nature is destined to be refashioned to its fullness according to the pattern of Jesus Christ and his mother, the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Immaculate Conception. It's very participatory. And we read with Bouyer, page 194, quoting Pope St. Gregory the Great, that there can be no charity except between two distinct beings. St. Gregory regards God as wholly other. This is the Jewish roots of Catholicism too. God is radically other than any creature, than the whole universe. Monotheism is in no way pantheism to any degree. God is not identifiable with any creature, and yet wants to unite the totality of created being to divine being, and in and through the resurrection. We read with St. Paul in Romans chapter 8, "All creation groans with labor pains, longing for the revelation of the children of God." And so there can be no charity except between two distinct beings. Love is the unity of this plurality of persons. And in the case of between our relationship and with God, the unity of a plurality of natures, in fact, which first of all is a unity that comes together in Jesus Christ. It's called the hypostatic union in Christology. So this is very beautiful, and this movement of salvation away from our fallen humanity, as we talked about in previous weeks, this renunciation of renunciation, that we undo this experience of the chaos of exaggerated desire, as Bouyer talks about, pages 203, 204. He really puts that very well. We experience this chaos of exaggerated desire when concupiscence goes unchecked, but through the renunciation, a return to the baptismal promises, we experience this ordered existence, moving by the grace of God toward the perfection of our nature, away from its fallen state. And finally, just a couple more points. Bouyer, page 206 in his book, he writes right in the middle, the cross on which humanity has crucified itself by its own sin would never save men and women if Christ had not made it his cross. Wow, that's very well put, I would say. So how Jesus takes upon himself the suffering that makes us whole. To read with St. Peter, by his stripes we are healed. So beautiful. For the sake of time, I'm going to leave it at that. And on page 207, we are just getting at the reversal, the holy reversal of this incurvatus in se, the curving in of the self on itself, to quote St. Augustine, that we're not meant as egos, as selves, and as an I, to curve in on the self and to be carried away in this chaos of exaggerated desire. No. Instead, the I becomes its true self to the degree that it gives itself away to the other in responsibility for the other, out of love for the other. Thanks so much for joining me on this video segment. If you want to read more about the metaphysics of salvation, St. Edith Stein, also known as Teresa Benedict of the Cross, is one of the best writers. Also, St. John Paul II, Theology of the Body, definitely incredible. And I wrote that book, Human and Divine Being, I referred to at the beginning of the semester, which really tries to synthesize St. Edith Stein's theological anthropology. So there's 3 chapters on the soul in that book. They're very substantive. I think if you're wanting to think more about this, I would refer to that book as well. So thanks. See you on the next segment.